The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So there are a bunch of new security policies, at least that's what they're being called, at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, the site of that horrible, horrible school shooting that took place not long ago. And one of those policies is that there are mandated clear backpacks for all students. The idea being that you'd be able to see into the backpack and see if there are firearms or knives or whatever else, or if it's just books and notebooks. And the backpacks themselves were donated by Walmart, so the students didn't have to actually purchase them. But a lot of students are not pleased with this. Some complaining about the smell of the plastic backpacks. There are female students who are expressing concern about the fact that if they have their female sanitary products, I think that's the term that would be used if we're using euphemisms.
Tampons?
Tampons. That they're just going to be visible walking around, although are they allowed to have like a smaller sort of pocketbook within the clear plastic backpack? It's not really clear. Other students just saying that, listen, statistically, they are not at any greater risk than any other school. Like, they already had a shooting. There could be a shooting at any school, and that now switching to the plastic backpacks, the transparent plastic backpacks, doesn't really make sense unless every school is doing it, because the fact that one person already did a shooting doesn't mean that another shooting is any more acutely likely to take place at that school. And after any incident, this happened after 9/11, we've had this in many periods in America's history, there are usually, there's a pattern that always takes place. And part of it is reactions to feeling as though we are less safe. And then security reactions to that. Are we okay with Patriot Act provisions because we had 9/11 and we want to prevent another 9/11 from happening? Well, right after the incident, people tend to be more in favor of those regulations. And then over time, they say, well, now I'm starting to weigh privacy a little bit more heavily than I was weighing security in the immediate aftermath, where people are still understandably traumatized and scared, even though statistically speaking, any individual incident could happen at any time. So I don't know ultimately what decision is going to be made at the school about these. There are similar policies at a lot of concert venues and sporting venues, not only in the United States, but around the world. And I genuinely, I tend to be kind of pragmatic on this stuff, like when it comes to the concert venues and the sporting events, because listen, the individual location can decide this is going to be our policy. And if people don't want to abide by it, then they can choose not to be patrons of our concerts or our sporting event, and they can sort of make a business decision. The concern I have with the schools is that these are public schools, and there's not the same level of choice where the kids can say, well, if I don't want what I feel is a privacy violation because people can see through my backpack and I might have personal items or who knows what else, I could have mail in there that is from anything that I want to be private, whatever. They don't really have that same choice to just say, well, I'll go to another school. So for me, it's more of a practical thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they're actually kept safer by the backpacks.
That's the thing. I mean, I think there are right-wing policies that I could be in support of when it comes to just preventing school shootings, like having armed guards at schools. I think we may be moving in the direction of having to do that. Certainly not arming teachers, but, just having people at the entrances to watch over everything. And even metal detectors, I know that's concerning because it does seem like we're becoming more of a police state.
Yeah.
And you have less freedom when it comes to that stuff. But I don't think the backpacks being clear is going to prevent most potential problems, because you could still hide a gun in between some books. Maybe not like an AR-15, but
Right.
certainly like a pistol.
Yeah, I mean,
so I don't know how effectual, and I don't think it's just not going to be very effective.
Yeah, I think that there's no question that if someone is determined to get a handgun into school, you could do it despite the clear backpack. I think that that's true. I'm thinking of it more from the bigger picture, and I just don't know whether it really adds safety. But at the same time, you could make the case, well, maybe it adds a little bit of potential safety, and it takes away a little bit of privacy, but it's not a crazy amount of privacy, and so maybe it would be acceptable. I don't know. We'll see. There are plenty of student activists, as we know, at Parkland, in Parkland, Florida, at this particular high school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
Stoneman.
I'm sorry?
Marjorie Stoneman.
Isn't it Stoneham?
I think it's Stoneman.
Oh, okay. I guess I don't even know. But you know the school I'm talking about. And we'll see ultimately if the bags stay or if they go. I've been talking to a bunch of my friends in New York about this new fee that has been put into place. It is going to be a sort of congestion surcharge on both yellow cab drivers as well as Uber and Lyft drivers. And the idea is that the area of Manhattan below 96th Street is the, I guess you would say, in the context of all of the 5 boroughs of New York City, the most congested with traffic, so that there are going to be surcharges of $2.75, which is exactly what a subway ride costs if you hail an Uber, Lyft, or yellow cab south of 96th Street in Manhattan. And basically everybody is mad about this, right? So the people who are against cabs and Uber and Lyft, and of course the Metropolitan Transit Authority, is they are in favor of this because the money is going to be used for improvements to the subway system. But the taxi drivers feel like they're getting the shaft because they've already been hurt by the presence of Uber and Lyft and so many people choosing to forego the yellow cab, instead using Uber and Lyft. Uber and Lyft feel like they are being unfairly targeted by yet another city, which is very, very common in different parts of the country. Lots of cities targeting Uber and Lyft, with yet something else that is going to make it even more expensive for their customers. And this is going to be a fee that doesn't go to the driver. It doesn't even go to Uber or Lyft. It's just $2.75 off the top that goes to strengthening the subway system and the public transit infrastructure. And then customers are also going to have to pay $2.75 more. And this is a really great example of it's not so much the tragedy of the commons, but it's sort of going in that direction where the idea is that bigger picture, society benefits from this fee, right? The fee will reduce the number, it will reduce the demand for cabs, Uber, and Lyft rides. Thus, it will clear up some of the congestion on the surface streets. It will push people to use public transit, which we know also clears up congestion and is better environmentally. And it will also provide money for the city to strengthen its public transit infrastructure. So it's an example of where, more broadly, all of New York City society is going to benefit. But for the individual cab drivers, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, and passengers, they all say, well, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess in principle, I agree with improving the city. I'd love less traffic. I would love all of that stuff. But I don't want to pay an extra $2.75 if I'm a rider. I don't want to lose maybe 5 customers a day because my ride as an Uber driver or as a taxi driver is going to cost someone $2.75 more, and instead they'll go underground and hop on the subway. So we have a lot of these examples in economics, and this is yet another one, which is probably for the greater good, but to the dismay of the individual.
And I feel like it's adding insult to injury when it comes to the taxi drivers too. They're already hurting, and I understand, you know, that's just the way it goes when we have new technology. Some people in the industry are going to be hurt by it.
Right.
So now with like the advent of Uber and Lyft, the ride sourcing apps that we have, fewer people are using taxis.
Right.
And, you know, even that will sometimes lead to like economic hardships for these taxi drivers.
Sure.
Sometimes they'll even commit suicide in some circumstances.
I've not heard of that.
Yeah. So adding another $2.75 per trip, that's going to hurt them even more, I think.
Yes, no doubt about
For
it.
sure, yeah.
The cab drivers are definitely getting the shaft here, as I mentioned. Scott Pruitt is the head of the EPA, and he has a lot of activists paying very, very close attention to what he is doing. And the latest sort of scandal for Scott Pruitt is that he has been staying in a condo owned by a lobbyist, and he has been getting a very, very good rate, a below market rate, and only paying for the nights that he actually stays in the condo, despite the condo being made available to him all the time. And as it turns out, the EPA has also given a contract to a company represented by the exact same lobbyist, J. Stephen Hart, who has contributed to Pruitt's political campaigns and works for a liquefied natural gas producer known as LNG. When you see trucks and it says LNG, liquefied natural gas, a ton of lobbying dollars circle around that. The wife of J. Stephen Hart, the LNG lobbyist, is Vicky Hart, who also is a lobbyist for healthcare. And Pruitt is paying $50 a night only for the nights that he's there, $6,100 for 6 months. His daughter, McKenna Pruitt, who was a White House intern at the time, was also living in this condo. And his full-time security detail was actually at one point so concerned that something weird was going on when Pruitt took off an afternoon to nap in the condo that they ended up breaking down the glass panel door of the rental property to check on him. And then the EPA was out another $2,500 in damages as a result of Pruitt's security team breaking in to the condo to make sure that Pruitt was okay. This is just another one of these crazy situations. The condo has been used for Republican fundraisers, and the entire thing here reeks of swamp-filling nonsense. I don't even know how long Pruitt can last at this point, and if you watch Fox News, you would have no idea that there are like 3 or 4 different scandals surrounding Scott Pruitt, but there are pretty serious conversations going on about resignation, which I think would be great, not just from a swamp-filling perspective. I guess it'd be swamp draining perspective if he goes. But this is a guy who's just terrible for the environment, and that's my number one concern. I mean, yes, it's bad that the EPA, financial, all this crazy stuff, condos and travel and all that stuff, it's bad. But in terms of the impact of that versus the destructive impact on the environment that Scott Pruitt's presence as head of the EPA could have, I think that the environment is what would benefit most from getting rid of this guy, even though more than likely, it's not like Trump's going to replace him with someone who's going to be a great advocate for the environment, but maybe it'd be someone marginally better.
Well, Donald Trump and John Kelly say that they have Scott Pruitt's back through all of this.
Right.
So I think we could expect him to be fired within
any
the
day
next
now.
week.
Yeah. Anytime that, as soon as Sarah Huckabee Sanders says that she has, that Scott Pruitt has the full confidence of the president, that's a signal that it's not going to be too much longer until the guy's gone.
When it comes to like the condo and the travel expenses taken on by Scott Pruitt, I can kind of understand that because you want to live a luxurious life and you want to take advantage of all these different things that you have available to you now.
Sure.
But he also constructed a phone booth within his office.
Yeah.
That cost like $42,000. What's the point of that?
We were told at the time that it was because the entire, so I guess the explanation is like a lot of people in equivalent positions to Scott Pruitt are in buildings where like their entire office is completely soundproof, but also like protected from digital surveillance. But if, and I'm just going from memory, I guess the building where the EPA is, as a matter of course, doesn't have that same protection. So they had to build something just for Scott Pruitt to be able to have that same kind of surveillance blocking technology or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could have hired another person with that money, but instead you built a phone booth.
Must be a beautiful phone booth.
Sure
yeah,
is.
I've never seen it, but it must be a beauty. All right, that's it for today. We will be back with a brand new program tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.